I'm so extremely excited to have the CIO that we've been working with very, very closely for several years now. And he heads an organization you may have heard of, especially maybe a little more so in the news lately. And they're one of the best brands in all of media entertainment. Please welcome Dave Duvall, the CIO of Discovery Communications.
Hey, Tony, how's it going? Very happy to be here.
Super happy to have you here. We didn't really time this around any big news, but we're excited to hear about that in the press. And I know that a lot of the stuff is still under development, but it just seems really exciting and fun for us as consumers of entertainment. So congrats on that, and looking forward to working with you through the ebbs and flows of that.
Yeah, we're very excited about the what the future is going to bring for the company, and excited about that transaction. It's still a long road to go before we get to any sort of closure of that deal. So for now, we're real focused on our current business and on Discovery Plus and on lots of internal. We've been doing a lot of big internal projects with you guys around Google Workspace and just all the excitement there. So plenty to do in the meantime for sure, but we're very excited about the future.
Definitely. Well, look, I want to always take the opportunity to really give the audience a background on my guests. You yourself have had such a fantastically exciting and long career at Discovery. I looked up your background, and I think you started as a systems engineer or something like that many years ago. And just to see that ascend to really the preeminent role in the IT organization, first of all, what an amazing journey. Congrats. Second of all, can you help the audience understand how that all came to be and how you navigated such a large organization so successfully through to also in the midst of tremendous challenges and transformation in M&E over the last couple of decades?
Yeah, I think one, it's been 18 years here, as you said, so it's been a good long ride. So one part, I'll say, the way you phrased it with navigating and getting to this place in a large company. One bit that helps is start at it when it's a much smaller company. So I think 18 years ago when I joined, very different company than what we are today, right? Back then, pure cable business, just a handful of networks in the States, a launched but a still pretty small international business, and kind of a simple model, and almost all of the company there in DC, which is where I still am today. And I think started there as you said, staff role, systems engineer role, which was actually a loftier title than where I started. I started in the NOC, doing monitoring tooling, and it was an operations role. It wasn't quite a shift based role, but it was a kind of a lead role, and kind of focused on the operations tools and stuff in that shop. And so done a lot of things within the group over the years. Did systems engineering mostly in the kind of back in those days, Windows and Intel space, and started VMware and all of that era of transformation. So kind of going from physical to virtual world way back in the day. I moved into management a few years in. I was a bad manager, just to be straight about it. And my first foray into management, I think like a lot of folks who are engineers, that first time you're managing others is really hard, letting go of being the builder and being an advisor and kind of figuring out your place. So I did that a bit. Then I did a little enterprise architecture work, which I liked because I could step away from kind of people management for a moment, kind of get back to the tech a little more. And then I stepped back into management when a leadership opportunity, like a director level role, opened up in the group. And I've kind of been just doing more and different jobs since then as the company changed shape. So like, as you said, we've not been, we've been very busy, especially the last like 10 years or so at the company. Yeah. Since we went public, a lot of acquisition, a lot of changes, a lot of broadening out of the business, international expansion first. And then we got into sports and we acquired Eurosport. Gosh, I'm losing track of time. 6+ years ago, it's been a long walk, and then more recently, we got into free to air networks in Europe, so just like straight up broadcast networks, and then of course we did a big acquisition of Scripps Networks in the US a few years ago. And for those who aren't close to the media industry, Scripps Networks was the home of HGTV and Food Network and Travel Channel. It's really amazing brands and just like iconic, so that move really, like, for us, shored up. We really wanted to own the nonfiction, like, real life space, the content space. And so those brands are amazing, and that team was amazing. And so that was a big challenge and transformation moment for the companies to come together. We got this big transaction pending now that we're very excited about getting into, and that whole thing will start again. But yeah, it's just been every moment. I think I am a bit of a unicorn right now in that you don't see a lot of people who really stick with one place for a long time. But every moment that I got any sort of itch to say, oh, should I look around? Should I do something different? It felt like the company changed so drastically. There was just a new opportunity there. I didn't have to go looking elsewhere. It seemed like there was always something landing at my feet that was new and exciting and different. And, we're a month out from the Olympic Games right now. That'll be our second Olympics broadcast on Eurosport. And that's an iconic experience, right? There's not many people who get to participate in that from a broadcast and content creation perspective. It's just a really cool place.
First of all, amazing, right? And just an amazing journey. But thank you for actually taking a moment to acknowledge how management is hard, and that you were, sort of self-diagnosed bad manager your first time around. Obviously, it's pretty safe to assume you're an exceptional manager now. And I think kudos to you to do the work required to get there, because I think what a lot of companies don't realize in our sort of career planning strategies for our top talent, like our top individual contributors, and what maybe a lot of individual contributors don't realize all the time, it's not natural to think that, management is an art and science of its own, and requires investment and training and practice to get good at.
Yeah, it took me a long time to realize, maybe longer than I would have liked, the art of finding good direct reports and finding a team that you trust and how to build a good team, and that, you've got to have a good eye for finding folks who complement your skills, fill in the blanks on the things that you're not good at, learning how to trust other people to do it. Because that was that big step, right? That management step is always, I knew what I wanted to build. Like, as an engineer, right, I was tasked with getting stuff done, and I was great at that. I loved doing that. I felt like comfortable in that. I was less comfortable in now managing a team. I'm asking them to build. I'm overseeing. I'm accountable for the whole group. And so that tendency to get pulled down into the details too far was really strong. And I didn't have the skills back then to really fight that in a way that was productive. And it wasn't that I was such a bad manager that I think my team didn't like me. My team liked me. I burned out. I got to wasn't healthy for me, and so then I sought out that enterprise architecture step to say, you know what, let me get away from the people management for a bit. Let me get into what does it feel like to be in enterprise architecture and kind of steer the strategy a bit more. Do I like that? And then I felt like I knew I liked that. I knew that elevation of kind of an engineer skill set to strategy and a bigger picture I liked. And then I looked for that opportunity to say, okay, maybe I'll like a bit more that mid-senior and that walk up to senior management of getting more strategic, like organization engineering, company strategy engineering. Like, is that going to scratch that itch? And ultimately, I really liked that. That was I felt like that was where I could really help the company and felt like where I could make a difference. And it's been a fun ride since then.
How would you describe the culture within Discovery in general, but really more specifically the IT organization? Because not only do you get to be a contributor to that culture, you can essentially drive the culture now from the, really kind of lead from the front. How would you describe the culture today and how it's evolved, and your style related to leading that organization?
Yeah, I'll start with the company and then come back to our team. But the Discovery company culture, especially since David Zaslav has been the CEO, it's a very direct, flat, open, like utterly open culture. Like, David's famous for, he will go to anyone in the company who he thinks will help, contribute to the moment or the idea. And he really believes and acts in a way that is genuine. And he's got this mentality that's sort of, he's the strong belief. He's from, before Discovery, he was at NBC Universal forever. He founded CNBC and is a, kind of a Jack Welch acolyte, right?
Yeah.
And so he's a firm believer in man, if you have a problem, you tell everyone as fast as you can, right? It's just an open, nobody ever figured a hard problem out by keeping it to themselves, right? So there's this very open, kind of blameless culture, not an unaccountable culture, but a blameless culture, right? It's still a hard accountability culture, but that sets a great tone at the top. And we've seen that on display through the pandemic, of all the care for our employees, all the flexibility, all the great things we've been able to do for our workforce over the last year and a half. And then our team, it's gone through some change states. When I first got to the company, we were kind of still, Discovery was figuring out how to be a big company, right? We were still kind of feudal IT, department-led IT, not even a central corporate core. So I've been around to kind of see the corporate vibe get established and sort of figure out how we want to run enterprise tech. And then the last 5 years, we've really focused on kind of more of an aggressive innovation curve. And I had a great boss before my current boss. We had a CTO at the time and had IT and broadcast kind of together under one leader. And he was great. He pushed us hard. That's where we started a lot of our experimentation into cloud media processing, cloud playout, like really pushing into public cloud hard, and changing the tone of what we wanted the IT service to be. And I think, I carried that mantle forward really with the current IT culture, where we're very customer obsessed internally. We really think hard about and really click into. And we saw that you guys saw that with us with this change moment we did for Workspace. How we manage change inside the company. We're pretty aggressive with change. Heck, with your team just now, we did Drive and Workspace rollouts during pandemics with the workforce totally remote, nobody in the office. Like we split it up. We managed to. We aren't crazy. We did it. It took us longer, I think, than we would have if we had not been impacted by a pandemic, but we still got it done. I think that's indicative of the culture. We really care about our staff. We really care about the service we offer to staff. And I think, everything's kind of grounded in that. And the other thing we're grounded in is nobody ever regrets that change. People think the change is hard and they fear the change, but when you get through it, like you're never gonna like second guess being aggressive in the moment. And I think that's like the hallmark of Discovery generally, right? We make decisions fast and go, and I think our team reflects that.
Look, I think that's tremendous in all parts of Discovery, but especially also in the IT organization, where you have that kind of culture that's dynamic, that's action oriented, that's decisive, that is being challenged by the market to continue to evolve, because you're in a global sort of competition for talent, much like we are, and to be able to have that kind of opportunity in-house at a place like Discovery that's as exciting as anywhere else at any tech company, I think that's tremendous. And I'm sure it's helped not only retain but also attract some tremendous folks at every level as your org has grown.
It's been such a unique experience here, because I think, especially when you look at I think the content space more than our IT partner space generally, like we're a 15,000 or so person workforce. We're about 10,000 full-time employees and about 5,000 contractors in the company. And so we're not a massively large company, but we're a great big brand. So we do kind of punch above our weight, I think, on partnership and like when I sort of work with anyone, whether it's, you guys at SADA, Tony, or whether it's even Google, or, we get kind of outsized attention for the size we are. And I think that is a privilege, and we want to lean into that. I think that's one thing that we've looked at over the years is, hey, I'm not offering a lot of our IT partners 200,000 seats of sales, but I'm we're innovative, we're aggressive. We tell you what we think. We want improvement out of our partners. We want to move the technology ball forward
Totally.
and the product ball forward. We had the great honor last year of getting a technology Emmy for recognition around our work in cloud, which was amazing. That's like, so
Wow.
we've
Technology
seen,
Emmy. I love it.
yeah, it's cool. It's cool. And we did that for like cloud media processing and some work we did there. And it was us and a couple other media companies and some partners that we worked with. But it was amazing. It was an amazing like achievement to say, okay, this is something we did and we are moving not just our company, but an industry forward. And I think that's where, yeah, 15,000 employees, not, we're kind of medium-ish size on the company scale, but we are a lighthouse within the M&E industry, right?
For
There's
sure.
only so many companies in this space, and we don't want to take advantage of that position and make Discovery just a great place to work. And we know a lot of that is pushing innovation bar high. Yeah.
You're also about to get a lot bigger, but we can't talk much about that. But you're gonna get
big. We hope someday, and we'll get there someday.
But I'll tell you, Dave. I mean, our team, we've been deploying Workspace for I think 15 years.
Yeah.
Maybe 14 years. I don't know. So we've seen lots of internal IT organizations of various sizes, bigger, smaller, different industries, and I have to tell you, our team really leans in. We like to be direct. We like to be prescriptive. We'll do anything to help remove risk at a customer, including disagreeing with their approach. We like to be prescriptive, heavy emphasis on adoption, change management, risk elimination, because it's a big deal. I mean, changing the number one used application for 100% of the employees in any organization is a big deal. During a pandemic, it's even crazier. But my team was just so complimentary of yours with regards to the working culture in a true partnership fashion. So I don't know if you and I ever shared that. I've shared that with you yet, but no better time than the present. They're really a fantastic group, and we felt those attributes of the culture that you're talking about. Like we felt as your partner going through a very challenging project.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And we could feel it. We had our steercos, and your team was in there, in those as we're sort of hitting our checkpoints through the project. And it was, yeah, we got to that place with you guys that I always want to get to with our partners, which is we're not aware of who's SADA, who's Discovery, who's
one team.
It's just these are the folks getting it done. This is who's in the trenches with us, getting this, change moment pushed across the line. And and we got there, and we're very happy with the outcome, right? We're a month and change removed from our big mail change moment for Workspace, and it's been pretty good. We're about to do our second wave of like pulse survey to see.
Right.
We did one the week of the change moment, and that has its own sort of special moment in time color to it of people fully in the who moved my cheese moment of the proceedings. And even there satisfaction was very high. So we're expecting some good improvement this month, because it has been, we're 6 weeks across, and we're going to check back in and see where it is. But overall it's gone absolutely great, like above expectations. The main theme I'm hearing from my stakeholders is, okay, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, which honestly,
that's actually a pretty common response, like war room, like all hands on deck, ready for the worst. And it's like crickets. For the most part, it's like, oh.
Yeah, you build the war rooms, really. I mean, we've done a few mail migrations over the years with different platforms and through different eras, right? And it's like the war room in the end usually ends up to be about data migration screw ups, than maybe usability stuff. But we were happy to see, and I'll tell you, it's such a difference today than 10 years ago of a cloud to cloud migration. You can solve a lot of problems with scale, right? And
True.
And we did it our migration weekend too with your team, right? We got we got partway through that migration weekend. We saw the pace of copying wasn't quite where we wanted it to be, and we deployed. We basically tripled our migration workers, and we caught up before the weekend was done. And in the old days, if that was on premises, man, you were just sunk.
We had to wait months for those servers to be provisioned in like a customer data center. I remember those days.
Oh no, we did. Like the last big one I remember when we were in the hardware world was 2-3 times ago, as actually, and this is like I'm showing my age and I'm showing my tenure at Discovery with the Lotus Notes to on-premises Exchange. And I remember that was a like 4-month walk. It was 3
Oh yeah.
migration nights per week, 200 mailboxes at a time. You were in coexistence mode
Oh,
forever, and it was
too
terrible.
long.
It was the
Yeah.
worst. It was
Yeah.
the worst. These big bang cutovers now with cloud migrations are amazing. To take a pilot group through or your ambassador group through, and then it just hit the whole company. Hey, on Monday, everybody's in the same boat. We're all in it together. We love that. I love that kind of change moment. I would much rather get my whole IT shop, every engineer I got doing customer support for a week. I'll take that over a 4-month
For sure.
transition, right? All
For
day,
sure.
all day.
Dave, if we back up to the decision time frame or the decision framework, what led you down the path of even just selecting Workspace to begin with? How did that go down?
Yeah, it was looking at a few things. It was looking at we made the decision 2 years ago, because as I said, the pandemic put a little crimp in our plans, right? I think we were fully intending to be on Workspace about a year ago today, right? Like we were really
Yeah.
talking like a summer last year change moment. We did have to sort of move our timeline. So we really made a decision 2 years ago. And at that point, we knew we were on this path of more of a consumer and a digital native core to the company, right? We knew we were at that transition moment where we were going to step out of that legacy business that we've had for 30 years and into a new era at the company. And we were looking for that. What are the core pieces of our collaboration that are either helping us or holding us back? And I have a lot of love for Microsoft's solutions in this space, right? It was serving us well. We were not on fire. This was kind of a unique change moment where what we were reflecting on was, how do I get to distributed teams that can be more effective in their work and that remote and asynchronous collaboration? And so it was really that combo of the mail environment, wanting to be browser based and simpler in our architecture, and wanting to have that full workspace suite of docs and sheets and slides and collaboration around the globe, and just really stitching together this company that now needs to collaborate and move at a faster pace and be global.
One of the other parts of the project, Dave, I was very proud of was 2 petabytes of document data from another cloud provider. I thought that was that's a huge amount.
Yeah, we are. I mentioned how aggressive and early we are. We'd been with another cloud storage provider for a long time at the company, and content. A content company can get this, especially the aggregate raw storage metrics, pretty lofty. And so, yeah, it was a lot of folders, a lot of depth, a lot of challenges to transition that across. So it was all very manageable. It was just like a big data movement and pile. I think then we were really, even with cloud, you're still thinking about the speed of light and how many bits can be moved per worker. A whole heck of a lot there. That was a long walk, but that was another great change moment. I think we've been really happy with what Drive brings us. I think there's always things we'd love to improve about every storage partner, and Drive definitely has things they still can work on. There's no doubt about it, but we do like I like the shared drive concepts within Drive. That's a nice layer that not a lot of other competitors give a lot of thought to that, and we found that incredibly helpful. And certainly, like all things in the Workspace suite, generally the search is really on point, and and we're really liking the overall experience. I think especially for the technology teams, the experience in docs and sheets and for technical writing and the kind of documents we produce and stuff is just amazing. It's just life changing.
Oh yeah.
The ability to do like anything we're working on, the ability for me and my SMT to get into a briefing deck that we got to build for our boss or something might, that whole experience of just being able to do that with comments and calling people in and, all that is just, it's something we really didn't have for a long. We didn't realize how much we were missing that live editing capability really over the years. We had learned to live without it, and we didn't know what we were missing really.
Yeah, it's so I don't even know how I would run this company without it.
Yeah, without being able to throw an action item in a doc or something, or
responding to an RFP, preparing for the board meetings, SOWs. I don't know, anything.
Yeah, that was the first sort of detractors we converted were some of our senior finance and senior comms execs who work on the board decks. I convinced them to try. I'm like, look, can you guys just try? Can you work on that? Even our quarterly earnings press release, I'm like, put that in docs, and then call me if you have problems. And they came back like, okay, that was amazing. Like
Yeah.
that thing gets edited 17,000 times before it's
Yeah.
released by a whole load of people. We're correcting stats. We're refining, we're making sure it's all accurate. And they're like, this was just life changing.
Saved,
So
saved, probably weeks of hours, in person hours.
yeah,
And
passing the
also,
draft, or oh, so and so's got it right now. Let me let
yeah,
them finish their piece, then I'll come back to you. Yeah, like it's all that flow, But yeah, the organizational flow part has been great, and I think there is that value to saying, you get that integrated experience, and
yeah, for sure. Look, I'm
yeah,
also a big fan of Javier Soltero, what he's done to product just in a short
yeah,
amount of time so far, because he just got here a couple of years ago. But
yeah.
he
And
has
it was
had,
good for us to come in at that unique moment where he's coming on, because I think
yeah,
pre his arrival, right? They had gotten a little bit of a rep for being somewhat static, right? They really hadn't changed the platform in a while. They were kind of it was what it was, and they were very happy with what it was. And change came very slowly and micro scale. And
yeah,
I think we're seeing that certainly in the last year. And we're a partner in there and with his customer collab council and stuff. So we're giving our active feedback in that direct to
excellent.
him and his team. And yeah, we're happy to see how aggressive. And I mean, I hate to say there's like, it's weird to say there's something good about the pandemic, but I do think the pandemic got these, because I know you've probably had these conversations with Google. I've had it with all of these guys, Google, Microsoft, anybody who's got that billion user plus platform. And it's right. There's this big risk calculation that says if I get this wrong, I'm impacting a billion people. And
That's
so it
right.
kind of constrains product innovation. But the pandemic just kind of it took the gloves off everybody. It was amazing to see how much from a feature perspective really shift into all of these platforms quickly. Like that thing I mentioned before about like full motion video sharing, like within 2 months of the pandemic, suddenly everybody had figured it out. You now that's like table stakes. Sharing video clips, the
Totally.
school
It's
needed
crazy.
it, we all
Yeah.
needed it at home, and like it became a thing very quickly. It was amazing
Yeah.
to see how
What
that
what
focus.
they announced just a couple weeks ago
Yeah,
was now, I think part of it was that different versions, like the consumer version and the enterprise version, and they're different, and there was chat and there was
yeah,
hangouts, like a global platform with, of course, for the enterprise, like, different security parameters, different posture, different authentication, so on and so forth. But I think that's going to help with the roadmap acceleration, because we're not
I
developing for
agree.
different platforms. Like everyone has Workspace. Um,
Yeah,
and also, he's definitely the visionary who built one of the best mobile apps for email back in the days, which is what Microsoft acquired. He came with that
yeah,
acquisition; it was his baby, and then ran Outlook for a while, ran Office for a while, and he brings not a Me Too strategy, but like a refreshing point of view, and I'm
yeah.
excited about what that holds. Let me ask you kind of a last question. One of the reasons we love working in the Google Cloud ecosystem and with these products is because we've experienced it. When a customer goes down the journey of deploying any part of Google Cloud, but maybe especially Workspace, it's one of the toughest decisions to make because it's not the incumbent decision, and we appreciate the gravity of that, like how important it is for us to perform, for Google to perform for our customers when they're making that decision. But the other part is we truly appreciate the impact that decision makes on the company above and beyond the technology. So from your point of view, and I know you're only a couple of months sort of fully live, what have you experienced that have been like cultural changes or shifts within discovery by virtue of Google Workspace being implemented?
Yeah. I think what one of the larger ones I'm seeing is this openness, and it's been a combo of I think Workspace and the pandemic also happening at the same time. But the flexible, the location flexibility conversation inside the company has utterly changed. And the pandemic was kind of one step, and then I think us getting these tools kind of in that same or similar
Mhm.
moment, kind of cemented, our SMT certainly pre-pandemic was, we want you in the office. That's kind of our vibe, and that was the vibe at a lot of companies. And that's a total 180 today. I mean, we are fully in for the flex workforce. We just did a survey of our folks, and I mean, it's only like 10% of our workforce that wants to go back to 5 days a week in the office when we go back. Right? It's very small. It's single digits. Really depends on the market, but it's a sea change, right? And I think it makes that, people have the confidence. Like every time I get a survey back that says people are comfortable being home, that's like, all right, that's like we're doing something right on the tech stack side, because people are just at home in their pajamas or whatever, and the stuff we're providing as an IT organization are working for them, and Workspace is a big part of that. So I think, I credit that, it's because it could have been a cultural hindrance possibly, but it's enabling that, it's making it happen. So
no, I think it's tremendously good timing for Discovery. We also saw a huge change in sort of, or difference in customers who had deployed it and customers that we're doing other services for that were not on Workspace. Their transition was a completely different experience. And I think the best is yet to come, but it really takes bold customers with the thought leadership like Discovery to not only choose to implement, but then really provide that exceptional feedback loop back to product around the areas that we can continue to get better. And, I'm just so excited about all the success that you're having, Discovery Plus and everything else. And the way that the organization has evolved right around the time where it's just clear that content is everything in this world. I think also accelerated by the pandemic in a lot of ways, the adoption and the consumption of various content streaming sources, et cetera. It's just like, I think it's a very exciting future ahead, and it's an honor and pleasure to be able to partner with you for now and hopefully far into the future. And I really want to express my appreciation for you being my guest on Cloud and Clear. This is going to be one of the best episodes yet.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Tony. Really appreciate it. Always happy to help.
Dave Duvall, CIO of Discovery, and hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you for listening to Cloud and Clear. Check the show notes for links to this week's topics, and don't forget to connect with us on Twitter @Cloud and Clear and our website, sada.com. Be sure to rate and review the show on your favorite podcast app.